it always amazes me when like anarchists are like, we gotta have more meetings. Like after we overthrow the government, it'll be like all meetings with like federated meetings, like all of like my workplace council and my neighborhood council, and they'll be federated up to the international level. And any economic decision of any time of any sort will be like done by consensus through meetings. And like our life will be 90% meetings, and that will be freedom. I'm like my siblings in Christ. I have sat through an anarchist meeting in my life. Why would I want my life to be only that? That's terrible. I might get canceled for this, but like Jesus fucking Christ, what a nightmare. Um, like it's just like occupy general assemblies forever. That's terrible. Like that's not a world I want to fight for. Like, don't get me wrong, the state and capitalism are bad, but that's also bad. And I think, to be honest, like meetings are classed and racialized and gendered, and there's like a lot of these people. I think it's because of like student organizing is one of the few places that like radical ideas are allowed to circulate with like a big asterisk at the end, right? Um, After the defeat of the non-university sections of the liberation movement of the '60s, right? Um, that it's people whose day jobs are meetings or in the form of meetings. There's like agendas, there's like points of order, there's like someone takes notes, and then you're trying to like organize some radical shit on the weekend. But because our political imaginations are shaped by the society in which we live, people who are in this like middle class meetings oriented spaces are like, in the free commune, I will get to write the meeting agenda. And it's like, oh my Jesus fucking. Anyway, like there's people who are acculturated and socialized into doing that. Like most people don't actually go to meetings ever. You know what I mean? Like most jobs don't involve meetings as like the form of sociality that people do. Like maybe like your shift lead is like lecturing you about how you fucked up last week and didn't meet like your sales quota or whatever. But like most people don't have meetings. Like white collar workers and students have things that are like the kinds of meetings that white collar workers and students make as like the entry point for their radical groups, right? So I think that just like the fetishization of process, right, I think is bad, right? I think doesn't mean we should never have meetings. Doesn't mean that I haven't um, hypocritically called or facilitated a few meetings of my own. But I think again, we just like elections, right? We need to be critical of the practices we're engaging in and encouraging people to engage in when they become litmus tests for achieving a thing, and see if they're actually achieving the thing. Like I'm a big bully. Like the most important political conversations and ideas I've had are with people 30 minutes after meetings, right? Where you're like outside and you're like talking to someone, you have like a drink or a smoke or whatever, you're just like shooting the shit. You're like, oh wait, that's a great fucking idea, right? So just I think that's something we need to keep in mind. That yeah, there's a fetishization I think of process and procedure, which has a role, but like um, I don't think that's what democracy in real terms looks like, right? I don't think it's like the Congress, but for everyone, or it's um, I think that oppositional grassroots political activity, um, in general, often involves a far greater degree of like decision making power for participants than we get from the American state, for the simple reason that like if you don't feel like anyone's listening to you, why would you show up, right? Like what's the buy-in if you aren't getting paid, if you don't have to be there, if you aren't getting anything materially from it, and you feel like no one gives a shit about what you say or what happens to you, like why would you even do that? Which I think is what we saw in some cities at the end of the George Floyd rebellion, right? When we had like reformist or authoritarian groups sort of setting the tone, setting the agenda. All you had at the end were people who were motivated, I think often by like white guilt, until that was no longer enough of an engine for people to like go do a useless thing again, right? And go on another permanent march and have someone else yell at me through a megaphone. Like people didn't have enough white guilt to sustain that for more than a few months. Um, but yeah, so I think that in these moments of like trying to figure out how to take this thing down, how to get things for ourselves and our communities, um, there is in the sense of building power, there often is a far more distributed um, decision making process. People have more voice. People have more chance to leave if they don't want to, and it incentivizes the creation of structures that are more democratic and more durable. And I think democracy, in that sense, that's the thing that I'm trying to. I wanted to excavate from this very broad concept. Um, I don't really give a shit about Robert's Rules of Orders. I don't care how good, like how beautifully designed a constitution is. I care like, do my neighbors get to have a say in what our neighborhood looks like in 5 years? Like, do for the people who are trying to take down a system that is exploitative and murderous, um, can we do that in such a way that we can like listen to each other and bring people in and figure out some way to do the thing together? Um, I think that's the thing that I still find uh, interesting about looking at the term democracy. I can't say that that's more democratic than democracy in any of these other senses, right? Because again, it's a contested and very malleable term because it's become this like master narrative for legitimating virtually anything. But that's the way that I'm hoping that we can additionally think about it, um, as we prepare for what's going to happen in the years to come.